Hi, boys and girls. Well, we just read a book about the Maryland State team sport, where you play together with a group of people on a team. And that, of course, was lacrosse. Now we're going to learn about the Maryland State individual sport. Individual means you play it by yourself. Well, the Maryland State individual sport is jousting. Do you know what jousting is? Well, here's what jousting is. Jousting is when you ride a horse and you wear armor, you have a shield and a very long pole, and it's your job to try and knock the other knight off their horse. So, some people will have seen this sport when they go to the Maryland Renaissance Festival. Raise your hand if you've been to the Renaissance Festival. Yes, some of you have been. And they have jousting tournaments there. So the Maryland State individual sport is jousting. And I have a really cool little story about the Littlest knight. And the Littlest knight wants to be part of the jousting tournament. Well, there is a problem though. Let's find out what his problem is and see if he can solve it. The Littlest knight and the jousting tournament. Yep, he looks pretty little. Let's find out what his problem is. For as long as he could remember, years maybe, 100 years maybe. Okay, well, say 5 years actually. Dexter had lived in the castle. Life was not easy for the littlest knight in the castle. The king's champion, the Green Knight, was in charge of all the other knights, and he kept Dexter working all the time. Dexter was always the one who had to blow the dragon's nose when it had a cold. Yikes, that would not be a safe job to do. And I love how lava is his bogies coming out of his nose. That makes pretty good sense, doesn't it? Dexter was always the one who had to drain the moat for spring cleaning. Ew, that looks green and goopy. I don't think I would want to clean up that. Yuck. When there was a plague of Vikings, who had to get rid of them? Who do you think has to get rid of all the Vikings? Yup, Dexter. When it began raining wizards, who had to catch them? Who do you think has to catch them? Yup, Dexter. When the old tower burned down, fell over, and sank into the mud, who had to build a new one? Really? All by himself? Dexter. Whoa, poor Dexter. He gets stuck with a lot of jobs. What Dexter really wanted to do was compete in the jousting tournament. But every year he had been too little to ride. There's the problem. He was too little. This year he was sure he was big enough. He put on his armor and he went to see the king. What do you think? Do you think he's going to be big enough, or do you think he will still be too small? I agree with you. But the king said no again. Dexter's not even close to meeting the little red line. It's like when you go to the theme parks and you try to get on a ride and you're too short to ride. Poor Dexter. Dexter was sad. So he went to see his friend William, the king's weasel counselor. Most kings kept a weasel around to give them advice. Some had several. A lot of kings had natural weasel abilities and didn't need an actual weasel. One of Dexter's jobs was to change the papers for William. William was hard at work. Well, William gets to sit in a very pink chair. My goodness, he's got a lot of papers to read. William was fond of Dexter. That means he likes him. And often said that he would have made a fine weasel. So he thinks Dexter is very smart. Dexter told William about his problem. William liked problems, and he liked to invent contraptions to solve them. He took Dexter into his problem-solving room. I wonder what a problem-solving room looks like. Well, here it is. Has a lot of books and plans and contraptions going on there. It didn't take William long to come up with a contraption to solve Dexter's problem. I like how he drew a plan. That's like a lot of scientists. They start off with a problem, they draw a plan, and then they try and figure out how to make their plan work. On the day of the tournament, Dexter got ready to joust. He shined his armor, decorated his lance, put on his new jousting shoes, and climbed into William's new contraption. He would joust under a new name to honor his friend, Weaseldex the Magnificent. William's contraption was a complete success. All the other knights just bounced off Weaseldex the Magnificent. Look at that one. He's been knocked right off onto the lance. Pretty cool so far. There was only one knight left to defeat, and Dexter would be the king's new champion for the year. It was the Green Knight, the king's champion for the last 4 years, the meanest, toughest, greenest knight of them all. They called him the Green Knight because all the other knights turned green at the thought of jousting him. Well, that, and he wore green armor. He's a funny-looking little guy, isn't he? Dexter had never been more scared. Not even on Take a Zombie to Lunch Day. Not even during the tiny witch convention that filled the castle with tiny flying broomsticks at eye level. Not even during the castle's annual flu shot day. As scared as he was, though, Dexter and William had a plan. The Green Knight lined up at one end of the jousting field. Weaseldex the Magnificent lined up on the other. The sun shone, the birds sang, the dogs barked. Minstrels helped themselves to the buffet table. I think they should wait. The smell of drifted through the air. The king, achoo, sneezed, and because he was allergic. With that sneeze, the Green Knight and his horse charged towards Dexter. Weaseldex the Magnificent charged towards the Green Knight. And as the Green Knight was almost upon them, Dexter pushed a button on Weaseldex the Magnificent, which released a hatch underneath Weaseldex the Magnificent, and released the marbles. Big marbles, little marbles, blue, pink, orange, purple, yellow, and green marbles. 14,136 marbles to be precise. The Green Knight slid past Dexter. Dexter ducked desperately, dodging deftly. The Green Knight crashed to the ground. When the last marble had stopped rolling and everything was quiet again, Weaseldex the Magnificent was the new king's champion. The mighty Weaseldex stood before the king. The king beamed happily at his new champion. I wonder what he's going to find out, or how he's going to feel when he finds out who's inside that contraption. And that was when Dexter popped the hatch on his armor, and he and William climbed out of Weaseldex. The king was furious. "No mechanical contraption is going to be my champion," he bellowed. Don't you want your champion to be clever?" William asked the king. Uh, well, yeah, the king started to say. "And don't you want your king's champion to be inventive?" Dexter asked the king. Well, certainly, the king started to say. "Well, then, here are your new clever inventive champions," said William, striking a clever inventive's pose. The king sat down and thought for a minute, and then he smiled. "Let the feast of 1,000 French fries begin." Wow, that's a lot of French fries. It turned out that as good as William was at inventing contraptions, he was even better at eating French fries. It was something about the snout. There was only one thing that worried Dexter now. What was a king's champion supposed to do? What does a king's champion do? Let's find out. It was going to be a very interesting year. So it looks like he's supposed to be an archer, rescue things, protect from giants, and guard the king's treasure. I wonder how that year is going to go. All right, my friends. Now you know about a Littlest knight and how he became a jousting champion. So scroll on down and find out what is your assignment to do with the Maryland State individual sport, jousting.